Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's Ashley Reeves with Snowboard Panda. I have a request to do videos on jumps for beginners and intermediates. So I'm going to do a series of jump videos. The next 3 or 4 videos are going to be on jumps. But this first one, it's just going to be an introduction to jumps. So for anyone who has never hit a jump before, or if you've tried to hit a few jumps and you're not landing them consistently, or you're not feeling comfortable, that's what this video is for. So the first thing that you need to think about is whether you're ready to try to hit a jump. You really don't have to be that great to start working on your jumps. No need to feel comfortable at really high speeds or anything like that. We're only going to be hitting small jumps. So as long as you can connect your turns easily and you feel good on the easier runs, then you should be good to go. Okay, so the first thing to think about is what jump to try first. You really have 2 options, I think. You can either hit a jump in the terrain park or you can hit a side hit outside of the park. In my opinion, it's better to actually start in the park. I hear a lot of people say that they recommend hitting side hits outside the park, and that's okay. The only thing I would say is those are more unpredictable, so they're going to be slanted. They're not shaped in the way that jumps in the park are, that help you maintain your balance a lot easier. So if you have access to small jumps inside a terrain park, I think that's really the best way to go. The way to know if a jump is small enough, you want to make sure that there's no gap that you have to clear between where you're taking off and where you're landing. So you should be able to literally just ride over the jump without getting any air and be okay. If that's not the case and there's some space there, a knuckle or a gap that you need to clear, and it's too big, leave the park and find a side hit outside. Okay, so let's go find a small jump in the terrain park and we'll take it from there. Alright, so I'm at the small terrain park and I have a series of like 7 small jumps here. So I'm going to talk about 3 things: the approach, the jump itself, and then the landing. So the first thing to keep in mind really is your body positioning. This stays pretty much the same throughout the entire thing. So the approach, while you're in the air, when you're landing, you want to make sure that you have a stacked position where you're over your board. So your front shoulder, front hand are over the nose of your board, and then the back shoulder and your back hand are over the tail of your board. What you want to avoid doing is opening your front shoulder so that your chest is facing the jump. Instead, stay in this position and just turn your head and look over your front shoulder. Okay, so now that you have your stacked body positioning throughout, let's talk about the approach. So there are really just 2 things to think about here: the speed and direction. So for direction, you want to hit the jump completely straight. If you do any small turns, like little speed checks on your heels and toes, just make sure you stop before you actually start going up the jump and straighten out completely so that you can hit the jump straight. You don't want to be going off the jump at an angle. The second thing is your speed. Because these jumps are so small, you can literally go as slow as you want. One option you have, if you aren't comfortable with the speed checks and you find yourself struggling to get completely straight before you take off, is to pick a spot where you feel comfortable going completely straight into the jump and start from there. So let's say I start here and I hit the jump. I just ride straight in. I don't worry about slowing down, getting on my heel side or toe side at all. I just ride completely straight. Once that's comfortable, all you gotta do is just move forward a few steps, right? And then just go straight from here. Every time you go, just back up a little bit more each time you feel comfortable, and you can increase the speed that way without having to worry about lining up your board straight while you're going into the jump. One other thing I do, even though I hit the jump straight, I do get just slightly on my toe edge, just for that extra stability that gives me. I'm not actually hitting the jump at an angle and going off to the side. I'm still going straight, but I do just get just a little bit on my toe edge and use that just to have a little bit more stability going into the jump. So for this run through, we're going to think about doing our speed checks if we're doing those, but then making sure we're going straight by the time we actually start going up the jump. hitting the jump straight, and then getting on a toe edge just slightly. One other quick note about your speed. The main thing you want to avoid is just going so fast that you overshoot the landing. So you don't want to land in the flat area, you want to land in the actual landing zone where the snow is still pitched downward. But as long as you're starting out small and increasing your speed as you feel comfortable, you shouldn't have to worry about that. Okay, so let's talk about actually getting in the air. We're going to keep this super simple so that there's really only one thing you need to think about, and that's your body positioning. So you want to maintain that stacked position while you're in the air. So avoid straightening out your legs, avoid opening up or bending forward or bending backward, and just keep that same position throughout. To actually get in the air, we're not going to ollie or pop or anything like that. We're just going to keep it as simple as possible and just simply ride over the jump. As a result, this first jump here, I'm not even going to get in the air, right? And I'm going to continue that throughout the rest of the jumps, just riding over it, not making it overcomplicated by trying to ollie or pop and have to worry about, what all goes into those things. And the last thing is the landing. So two things here, really. The first is you want to absorb the landing with your knees. So what that means is as you're landing, you want to bend your knees more with the landing so that you absorb it, just so that the landing is easier to help your balance as well as just make it feel better. And then the second thing is when you are riding away after you land it, ride away straight for at least a few seconds before you put on the brakes, either on your heels or toes, just to do two things. One, it'll help you avoid falling, and then second, it doesn't mess up the landing. It keeps the landing really smooth for everyone else. So when we go through this time, we're thinking about absorbing the landing with our knees and then riding away straight for a few seconds. Alright, let's do a quick recap. So you start small, either a small jump in the park, or if you don't have access to that, a side hit outside the park. Go slow at first and then slowly increase your speed as you feel comfortable. That'll help you avoid messing up your body positioning in a way that's just going to make it harder to land. Keep that stacked position over your board with your knees bent throughout the approach, in the air and in the landing. Approach the jump straight. Get on a slight toe edge for that stability, and then when you land, use your knees to absorb the landing and ride away straight for a few seconds before putting on the brakes. Okay, that's it for this video. If you liked the video or found the tips helpful, please consider subscribing to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.